Hey, this is 4 Bricks Tall. In this first video of my lighting series, I'm going to explain the 4 characteristics of light that every toy photographer should know about: quality, quantity, color, and direction. Let's start with the quality of light because it's probably the characteristic that is the least obvious. The quality of light is best described by how hard or soft a light is. Let me show you. So here I have a Lego minifigure and this tiny LED flashlight. The actual light source, this single LED mounted in a reflector, is just about the size of the minifig's head, so it's pretty small. And because it's so small, the light that this flashlight produces is what we call a hard light. Let's turn this flashlight on and the overhead light off to see what the hard light looks like. You can easily identify hard light by the very defined edges of the shadows it casts. There are lots of creative uses for hard light, which we'll get into in the advanced lighting part of this series, but let's jump to soft lighting because a lot of photographers prefer to use soft lighting at least to start with. One way to create soft light out of hard light is to use diffusion that is bigger than the light itself. This is a 12-inch diffuser that I'm going to use to modify the flashlight. This diffuser is a type of light modifier. As soon as I put the diffusion between the light and the minifig, the shadow changes. There aren't any hard edges anymore. There's a fall off, a gradient between the darkest part and the lightest part of the shadow. This is what we call soft light. And that happens because the diffusion is now the light source. It's spreading the light over a much larger surface. If I move the diffusion closer to the light source, the light becomes harder again because the beam isn't able to spread out over the diffusion. Another way to create a soft light out of a hard light source is to bounce it off a white panel, such as this card. Now I'm aiming the hard light at this card, which will reflect the light onto the minifig as soft light. The card, with its larger surface, is now the light source. Hard light, soft light. Okay, let's move on to a popular choice of light for many toy photographers: an LED panel. This panel is much larger in relation to the size of the minifig, so you should already know that it's going to produce a softer light than the flashlight. This one has a few controls on the back: a color temperature dial to go from warm to cool light, and a dimmer to adjust the brightness. Okay, let's turn it on so I can show you what these controls do. Another less obvious characteristic of light is color temperature, which goes from a warm orange to a cool blue. And I can change the color temperature on this LED panel to make it warmer, like a sunset, candlelight, or apocalypse. This color temperature that I've been using is more daylight balanced, which is neutral. The next dial is the dimmer, which controls our third characteristic of light, the quantity of light, or how bright or intense your light source is. Both the LED panel and the keychain LED flashlight are dimmable, so that's one way to control the quantity of light. Another way is distance, how far the subject is away from the light source. The further away the light is, the less intense it is. And finally, the last characteristic, the direction of light. The direction of light determines the size of the shadows. I'll start with the LED panel to the side pointing down at the minifig. Watch the shadows shrink as I move the LED directly overhead. Almost no shadows here. It's easier to show the shadows with a hard light source, so let's switch back to the flashlight. Here, I'm just circling the flashlight overhead at an angle. Watch the length of shadows while the light's at an angle versus when it's overhead. Okay, so those are the 4 characteristics of light: quality, quantity, color temperature, and direction. In an upcoming video, you'll learn how to use these characteristics of light in your photos. I hope you enjoyed this first video of my lighting series. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for more toy photography tutorials.